When you look down at a patch of soil that's gone pale, dry and lifeless, it can feel like staring at the aftermath of defeat. Once fertile earth, now just dust. Plants refuse to grow, water runs off instead of soaking in, and every effort feels wasted. But here's the truth most people don't realize. Even the deadest ground isn't truly dead. It's dormant. Beneath the surface, millions of microscopic remnants are waiting for one thing: life to return. And the process of reviving that life isn't about expensive fertilizers or complex systems. It begins with a few simple, deliberate steps that reawaken the biology buried in that tired soil. Dead soil isn't empty, it's just disconnected from its living systems. The first thing to understand is that soil only becomes dead when its biological network breaks down. Over-tilling, chemical use, drought or erosion can strip away organic matter and microbial colonies, leaving behind sterile minerals. Without the microbial life that feeds plants and glues soil together, it becomes nothing more than powdered rock. The good news? That same life can return surprisingly fast once it's given food, moisture and protection. Soil revival isn't about forcing fertility. It's about rebuilding the natural processes that create it. Think of it like waking up a sleeping forest floor. You don't need to plant hundreds of trees overnight. You just need to give nature a reason to start working again. The goal is to create the right environment for microbes, fungi, and insects to rebuild the underground food web that once made the soil vibrant. Moisture and cover are the first steps to restarting soil biology. The first real sign of recovery begins when moisture stays long enough for microbes to wake up. Dead soil usually repels water because it lacks organic material to hold it. That's why your first task isn't planting, it's rehydrating. Start by spreading a layer of organic matter such as grass clippings, shredded leaves, or even kitchen scraps directly on top of the ground. This layer acts as a temporary sponge, slowing evaporation and encouraging fungi and bacteria to return to the surface. If the soil is severely compacted, you know it's best to lightly poke small holes with a stick or a metal rod before adding any organic matter. This simple step lets water infiltrate deeper instead of just running off the surface. Once that's done, go ahead and soak the area slowly. Don't flood it or anything. A deep, gentle watering allows moisture to travel down through the layers and re-establish capillary movement. Within days, the moisture activates dormant microbes, and that begins a silent but crucial chain reaction. Feeding the soil with decaying life, well, that really jump-starts its natural recovery. Once moisture is consistent, the next step is feeding the soil. But the key here isn't commercial fertilizer, it's decaying organic matter. Fertilizers feed plants directly, but compost, rot, and mulch feed microbes, and those microbes in turn feed everything else. This is honestly the foundation of soil resurrection. For example, farmers in degraded regions often mix decomposing plant matter directly into the surface, not deeply buried, but just enough to contact the soil. Within a few weeks, this organic layer begins to decompose, releasing carbon and nitrogen compounds that microbes thrive on. You can replicate this by layering decomposed manure, rotting vegetables, or broken-down compost over your dead soil, and letting time and moisture do their work. One of the simplest and honestly most powerful methods is what's known as sheet composting. Instead of digging, you just lay layers of carbon-rich material like dry leaves or straw, followed by nitrogen-rich material such as grass or kitchen waste. Over time, worms and fungi naturally pull this down into the ground, building structure and feeding the invisible world below. After a few months, the transformation is obvious. The soil becomes darker, softer, and full of that earthy scent, proof of microbial rebirth. Microbes and fungi form the invisible roots of new soil life. You simply can't grow life back into dead soil without the help of fungi and bacteria. They're the architects that rebuild structure, fix nutrients, and create the soil aggregates that let roots breathe. The simplest way to introduce them is by using a microbial inoculant, but you can also do it for free by applying a compost tea or a fermented plant solution. To make one, you just mix a shovel of living compost, maybe from an active pile or even a healthy forest floor, into a bucket of non-chlorinated water. Let it sit with a small amount of molasses for about 24 hours, then pour it over your soil. What you're really doing is reintroducing the builders, the tiny organisms that break down waste and turn it into humus. Within days, the soil begins to change, even if, it looks the same from above. That microbial bloom starts forming the glue that holds soil particles together, improving both structure and nutrient retention. In survival or low-resource situations, even something as simple as soaking decaying leaves in water and spreading that infusion across bare ground can begin the same process. The microbes will multiply rapidly once moisture and organic matter are consistent, feeding on carbon and rebuilding the soil ecosystem from the ground up. Roots are the engines that keep revived soil alive. The final and most critical step is to bring in living roots. Plants don't just grow in soil, they feed it. Through their roots, plants release sugars and compounds called exudates that sustain the microbial network. Without roots, the system falls silent again. The trick is to choose hardy pioneer plants, species that thrive in poor soil and push deep roots. Grasses, legumes and fast-growing cover crops like clover or rye are perfect for this. They don't demand much, but give a lot in return. After spreading seeds, you'll want to keep the soil covered with a light layer of mulch to prevent crusting. Once these plants establish, their roots will carve air channels, attract earthworms, and continue fueling microbial activity. As they grow and eventually decompose, they leave behind organic matter that, deepens the fertility cycle. Within a single growing season, a patch of once dead dirt can begin to act like living soil again. Spongy, rich and full of life. Patience and protection are the final ingredients to lasting recovery. The biggest mistake people make is expecting quick results. True soil regeneration takes time, but every small action compounds. Protecting the soil with mulch, maintaining moisture and keeping living roots present ensures that the biological momentum continues. Avoid chemicals and deep tilling during this stage. They'll undo months of microbial rebuilding. Instead, think like a caretaker, not a controller. Once the biology re-establishes, the soil takes over and sustains itself. For anyone working a homestead, garden or survival plot, this approach isn't just theory. It's the foundation of independence. When you understand how to bring life back to dead soil, you can turn barren land into food-producing ground anywhere on Earth. And that's power most people overlook. So, if this deep dive helped you see how simple and natural soil recovery truly is, don't forget to subscribe to Hydro Haven. Share this with someone trying to revive their own patch of earth. Because no matter how far gone your soil looks, life is always waiting just below the surface. You just need to wake it up.